Welcome to another episode of Desh or Diaspora. It's a bit of a long title this time. History does not record the existence of any virtuous nation on earth. Not Christian, not Muslim, not Hindu. After 40 years in Iran, Khomeini and his mullahs haven't created a virtuous Islamist nation, nor has Pakistan emerged as the land of the pure. Will India's Hindu Rashtra rise from morality or brutality? When Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran came to power in 1979, many Iranians believed that Khomeini would address poverty, illiteracy, and capitalism. And he would usher in an Islamic paradise of perfect economic and social equality, not a brutal theocracy that Iran has become today. Sound familiar? Reminds us of Shri Narendra Modi's Achhe Din promises. It is now 4 decades since Khomeini launched Iran's theocratic political project. Besides declaring that Western democracy is Iran's main enemy, what have the mullahs achieved for their people? Iran has an unstable economy, low GDP per capita, and around half of Iranians have fallen into poverty. Iran also holds the world record for the number of executions per capita. According to Amnesty International, and I quote, more than half, 51% of all recorded executions in 2017, I don't have the latest figures, were carried out in Iran. With incredible brutality, 120,000 people have been executed in Iran since 1981. What was their crime? Speaking out against the government. And at least 1/3 of this 120,000 people executed were women, with at least 50 pregnant women. Popular protests are recurring in Iran, and it indicates that the Islamic Republic has not only failed to foster Khomeini's notion of a virtuous Islamic society, but its ideology is being rejected on a widespread national basis. So let me ask a question. When a Hindutva-driven Islamophobia has permeated the Hindu mainstream in India, can a truly virtuous Hindu Rashtra really emerge? We just commemorated International Women's Day on March 8, 2021, last week. But on March 8, 1979 in Iran, it was the last day that tens of thousands of Iranian women protested in public without a veil. Khomeini had cleverly used Iranian women for his revolution. But after his victory over the Shah of Iran, he unleashed his Komite thugs, his religious police, on the women when they marched in 1979. They were mercilessly beaten and warned, veil yourselves or be beaten or worse. In India, when Narendra Modi and the RSS have dreams of creating a virtuous Hindu Rashtra, Modi may not come across as Khomeini, at least not yet, but he has systematically been dismantling India's democracy. Our Prime Minister is very shrewd. He thinks he can hide his communal heart. He is very careful not to be openly partisan, but his track record proves otherwise. When he was chief minister during the 2002 Gujarat pogrom against the Muslims after Godhra, Modi gave the most incendiary speech. He mocked the riot victims, calling their relief camps as child producing factories. These were Muslim people who had been forced into these uh, camps, who were desperate to survive. Modi reviled the Anti Citizen Amendment Act protesters in Delhi last year, saying he could identify them as Muslims by the clothes they wore, and his silence on scores of Muslim lynchings in the country clearly expose his sectarian thinking. The blatant violation of the Constitution, a tamed press, journalists, and academics being intimidated by the state or its political thugs, the systematic capture of public institutions and making them partisan, subservient to Modi and his ruling party. What does it show? India's civil service, its investigative agencies, the army, the Reserve Bank of India, the Election Commission, even to some extent our judiciary. What does it show? That they are in his pocket. Totalitarianism has clearly arrived in India, and every totalitarian ideology you can think of has created its scapegoats. In Germany, it was the Jews. In India, it's the Muslims for now. What follows remains to be seen. What is happening in India today reminds me of a visit I made to Tehran in 1986. I saw firsthand what a life of fear under a fanatic theocracy is like. In India, over 37% of 603 million Indians who were eligible to vote foolishly chose the BJP, an avowed religious political party, and they chose them for the second time in 2019. Similarly, if you remember, history tells us in 1938, millions of Germans sealed their country's fate by choosing Hitler. Gullible Indians, too, see no threat from what's happening today from Modi and his Sangh Parivar. They see no threat from the khaki clad hordes of the private 7 million strong RSS army. The RSS has 70,000 militant shakas spread all over the country to back Modi, just like the brown shirted Nazi thugs of Adolf Hitler, who, by the way, is the idol of the RSS. Just as my taxi pulled out from Tehran's Imam Khomeini International Airport, I got my first glimpse of life in Iran. Just two cars ahead of me, I saw a man and a woman dragged out of their car and beaten with clubs by the Komite, the Iranian militia. With the rank brutality that I witnessed, I doubt the man or the woman survived. I had one more scary experience on that trip to Iran, which I'd rather not discuss. Ask me about it if you meet me. My trip, nonetheless, was quite fascinating. I love the Iranian people. I've met some wonderful people there. I love Iranian food. And one dessert I always longed for is firni, the delicious, creamy, rose flavored pudding with pistachios. Except for its extreme pollution, Tehran, surrounded by mountains, is a visual delight. The Grand Bazaar, its tea houses, mosques, shrines, mingled with ancient smells of spices, sweetmeats, fruits, perfumes. It's an unforgettable ambience. Just like in Iran, progressive forces in India may be underestimating the strength and organization of the Hindutva religious forces. But religious rule has arrived in India, and Indians are fighting their own perverse Hindu holy war. In closing, let me remind you again, history does not record the existence of any virtuous nation on earth, not Christian, not Muslim, and as Indians will soon find out, not even Hindu. So don't hold your breath. Thank you for watching.